most respected audience, dear friends, comrades, and students. A very good day to you all. Today, I wish to speak about Professor Sadasivan, who served as the head of the department of Manonmaniyam Sundarnar University History Department. It is generally said that some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. In the case of Professor Sadasivan, he achieved greatness through his hard work and dedication. Recently, when we visited Nepal, Professor Venumohan, while we were traveling in a van, he was stating about the importance of Professor Dr. Sadasivan and how he misses him at that time. After his retirement, Professor Sadasivan was very active in Kerala circle than in Tamil Nadu. I first heard of him when I was serving as a temporary assistant professor in leave place at St. Joseph's College, Trichy, where he came as a resource person and delivered a wonderful speech. I did not attend that speech, but those who were audience praised his speech and they were inspired by his talk. And he left a definite impact among them, and most of them were talking about his ability. And I came to know that there is a person by name Professor Dr. Sadasivan serving at Manonmaniyam Sundarnar University and contributing immensely for the development of the discipline of history. At that time, I never thought I will apply for Manonmaniyam Sundarnar University assistant professor post. At that time, it was lecturer, and I will be a colleague of a very great person by name Professor Dr. Sadasivan. Since I had only an MA, most of the people who I consulted discouraged me, stating that you will not be selected. However, Professor Sadasivan selected me on merit and ushered in a new era in my academic and personal life. When I was about to leave from St. Joseph's College, most of the teachers cautioned me about the unusual department politics prevailing in Manonmaniyam Sundarnar University History Department. But however, when I closely associated myself with Professor Dr. Sadasivan, I learned that he is a dedicated teacher and a very committed researcher. One of our senior colleagues, Professor Dr. Rabindranathan of the English department of our university, once remarked that if you give a mic to Professor Sadasivan, then other speakers can remain silent. Such long speeches he made and engages the audience without getting bored or diverted from that topic. He had a great skill of oratory and he had that passion, and he constantly worked to improve his passion. On the observation of his fourth memorial, his sister-in-law, Professor Dr. Premalata, who served in the Mother Teresa University as professor and head of the Department of History, she said that his brother-in-law had a belief that they are, meaning their family, are the successors of Adankotu Arsan, who helped Tolkappiyar to stage his Tolkappiyam to the public and the literary world. She also added the kind of love and affection the siblings had for each other in his family, and it was noted by the general public. And before marrying his brother, Professor Dr. Premalata has known about the bond that prevailed in the family. And this is one of the rarest cases if we are to speak of such family these days. So, in that matter also, Professor Sadasivan is a pioneer and model for our society. Being the eldest son, he took the responsibility of more than 10 siblings born after him, and until last he had that responsibility over his brothers and sisters. He studied in several schools and colleges, but his basic education was provided by government school at Vavarai near his hometown, from where he took his PUC in Marthandam Christian College and BA in NS College, Sanganacheri, and further took his postgraduate studies at Madurai Kamaraj University. At Madurai Kamaraj University, he came in close association with great professors like Manikam, Rajayan, and N. Subramanian. He had a very great appreciation for the South Indian Rebellion, a work produced by Professor Dr. Rajayan. He wanted Professor Rajayan to be his PhD guide, but fate had other designs, and therefore Professor Sadasivan registered for PhD as an independent scholar, as said by his beloved student Dr. Premakumar. Hailing from a very ordinary family and inspired by scholars like N. Rajayan, Professor Sadasivan remained a leftist. His leftism is limited to his research and inquiry rather than associating himself with party or politics. However, he is one of the founding members of the MSUFA, that is Manonmaniyam Sundarnar University Faculty Association, but subsequently he did not show himself to be active in that particular association also. In fact, he wished to call himself a humanist, and as a scholar of the marginalized, he chose to write something about the women who are deprived of normal life, and therefore he chose a very different topic. If you are to ask how old are you to Professor Sadasivam, I think he will answer that he is very ancient. Such an ancient mind he had, and that mind, with combination of his sympathy for the marginalized class, made him choose a topic which became eternal, that is Devadasi system in medieval Tamil Nadu. Though there were no guide to this monumental work, yet Professor Sadasivan did not compromise with the wealth of primary sources as well as secondary sources. He visited a lot of places and thoroughly explored the epigraphic evidence provided within temple premises and other places. He had close association with poet Bala, who was also professor of English at Manonmaniyam Sundarnar University. Through his camaraderie, Professor Sadasivan came to know about ideas such as postmodernism, structuralism, and post-structuralism, and he thought of reviving his work applying these theories into the Devadasi system, and he wished to revisit the area of research once again. However, without the application of all that also, the book was a meritorious one, and I am a personal witness to its reach. One day, Professor Sadasivan received a phone call from Mangalore, I think from Mangalore University. One professor, he spoke to Professor Sadasivan and stated that one of my scholars is doing a research in Devadasi system, and she framed several questions and was trying to find answers, and she could not find answers in any of the works, but for every question she framed, she found answer in your book. But Professor, we came to know that you do not have an email. Kindly maintain an email, create one, and send us the details. We will send you constant invitations for visiting our university as a resource person. Then only Professor Sadasivan, with my help, created an email. But again, he forgot the details such as password and original ID, and therefore he again created a new email with the help of a computer center staff. He lost faith in organizations such as Indian History Congress. In one occasion, when he completed his presentation, the chairperson of the session, He hugged Sadasivan, congratulated him, and promised to publish his work in the proceedings. But to the disappointment of Professor Sadasivan, that particular article was not published. And he came to realize that there is a huge lobby behind Indian History Congress, and they publish only works of such people who are within their limits only. And therefore, he was pessimistic about presenting papers at Indian History Congress, but he constantly visited Tamil Nadu History Congress and South Indian History Congress, and he happily associated himself with the Association of Third World Studies because his talents were well recognized by the body and the member scholars. Dr. James Daniel, principal of Scott Christian College, he also constantly encouraged Professor Sadasivam to associate himself with studies pertaining to Bishop Caldwell. Similarly, Professor Dr. Vasumati Devi of Kerala University is none other than one like his own sister and a close associate in history, research, and writing. Therefore, the Association of Third World Studies became one like his own home, and he felt very comfortable with that, and he was once honored with the presidentship of the association. Professor Sadasivan lacked in sophisticated behavior. If somebody invites him to deliver a lecture, he checks his schedule and gives his acceptance. Some scholars of his caliber, they will demand 3-star stay, Innova car, pickup and drop, and minimum second AC tickets. But until last, he ate only simple food, and he dressed very simply. Like Mahatma Gandhi, he travelled in ordinary classes and adjusted with whatever accommodation is being given to him. Once an IAS officer approached him and encouraged him to constantly publish, and therefore Professor Sadasivan started writing an article and was waiting for the most appropriate time and publisher for publishing it. This IAS officer, he collected that particular writing and he took that only to remain silent for a while. But after a period of time, it was published in the name of another scholar in the Hindu English newspaper. Professor Sadasivan did not agitate or make a complaint or tried to make an issue out of that. He said that somebody is publishing and the matter has to reach the public, and that is it. To its contrast, if somebody is having in the academic world a contact with an IAS officer or a person who could tap one's abilities, then he will demand some profit, at least an office of profit for himself. But Professor Sadasivan was not a man of such kind. He is always a passionate reader and writer. In fact, he is a restless reader, a great editor, a gifted writer, above all, a sincere and patient listener. This is very important. His daughter and myself are of almost same age, but when I speak something about history or historiography, he patiently listened and he accepted some of my arguments and appreciated that. He had a very long period of headship in the Department of History of Manonmaniam Sundarnath University, which was not accepted by several of his colleagues. He was more misunderstood than understood. But I had a very different experience with him. One day I returned late after visiting the transport office for my two-wheeler driving license. I came late than usual. At that time, Professor Sadasivan asked me to sign the attendance register. I said, sir, better mark me CL, and that will be the judicious decision, I said. He said, now you are here, I have seen you. And further, he added that, remember, if you are to face some problem, I will defend you. And if still you are facing some trouble, again remember that it is coming from me. So he defended all his members when they are in a problematic situation, but he was again very well misunderstood. Moreover, for a senior staff like him, it is his responsibility to contribute for the growth of his juniors and freshers like me, and he did that very effectively. He introduced me to several colleges, and he took me along with him to several seminars and conferences, and he constantly introduced me with high and commendable words, and he always said that he has a very good future in the field of academics and discipline of history. Thus, he was not my guide, but he was more than a mentor, a philosopher, and a senior friend and a guardian. And his death has left me with great loss. Not only me, but many other scholars who, like anchorless ship in a stormy sea, winding here and there without any direction. Upon being the HOD of the department, he was also registrar for about 5 months. Professor Dr. Cynthia Pondian, she made him registrar during her tenure as vice chancellor in the university. Her husband, Dr. P.H. Pondian, had introduced Professor Sadasivan on the occasion of Madam taking charge as the vice chancellor. Prior to it, Professor Sadasivan was constantly contacted by Dr. P.H. Pondian whenever he came across with historical doubts, and Professor Sadasivan is said to have convincingly cleared all his doubts and earned an image for himself not only with Dr. P.H. Pondian, but he was also ghostwriter for several other political leaders through his academic friends at the senior level. As a registrar, he took the cause of the so-called last grade class of workers, that are the sweepers. Several of them were working for meager wages and were given a consolidated pay. And Professor Sadasivan, he made them permanent staff, and he initiated a file for that. The Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Cynthia Pondian, had asked whether there is a convention for making such appointments, for which Professor Sadasivan replied that, Madam, let us make a convention newly, and our successors will follow this. Thus, the non-teaching staff who benefited from his decision still remember his contribution in their lives. As a syndicate member and member of the Standing Council of Academic Affairs, the contribution of Professor Sadasivan is immense. He always remembered Professor Dr. Chokkalingam, who made him syndicate member of the university. Inspired by Edmund Burke, he made some of the novel speeches during his syndicate membership. Apart from all these, Professor Dr. Sadasivan had gifted students also. His PhD ward, Dr. Bose, came forward to create an endowment in his name, like his mentor making an endowment at Wawarai School. His student imitated that and attempted to make an endowment in Professor Sadasivan names in South Indian History Congress, giving 50,000 rupees. But South Indian History Congress, they demanded 50,000 more rupees to create an endowment, which Dr. Bose came forward to give with wholehearted commitment. Similarly, Dr. Premakumar, He has come forward to donate rupees 5,000 to create an award for best paper with the Association of Third World Studies. Gestures of this kind may continue in future also, as because Professor Sadasivan has created a lot many students who have benefited from his teaching, and they remember him still for his scholarship and humanly approach. Professor Sadasivan is survived by his wife and 3 children, 2 female and 1 male, and bearing the mark of Professor Sadasivam, all of them are living as great human beings, contributing immensely to the society. With this, I wish to end my speech on Professor Dr. Sadasivam. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.